forever green, forever gold, the golden touch. 4 World Cup medals. We were very fortunate to be living in Cape Town, and we got down to the convention centre to celebrate last Thursday night, to celebrate the Springbok Awards, the SA Rugby Awards. They haven't had that kind of gala evening for some time. It was fabulous. We drank lots of castle beer. I don't think F&B gave us any accounts. Betway didn't give us any slips. And MTN didn't give us any airtime. But we drank lots of castle beer there. It was wonderful. Sat at a table with the young and the old. Dion Fourie Brunners, one of the great men of South African rugby, got one of the great stories. If you're a romantic, Dion Fourie is the story, and he's still in the Boks mix, hitting close to 40. And then Lorenzo Julius, one of the up-and-coming stars, Boogeyman, was there, and he was the Junior Springbok of the Year. Yusuf Jackson from SA Rugby was there.
And there was that prop guy. Who is he? What is his name again?
I don't know who the prop guy was.
The big guy. He's good at braaiing. He plays for the Stormers. France, what's his name? Malherbe.
That's right, Frans Malherbe, whose birthday was the very next day.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I'll be going to Arneson this weekend. France is going to Wales. He said to me, please wave at my phone every stop on the way down. Please wave at it. But it was an incredible night, and I wrote a column for Sunday Times about it, which you guys so kindly also kind of cross-referred to on SA Rugby magazine, that we haven't done this for a while. I know COVID, economic factors, and that this celebration of being the best. We're also a nation that really likes to be the underdog and take a beating. Backs to the wall. But we don't always celebrate as we should. And you can't do anything but celebrate this current crop of Springboks with a gala evening sprinkled with green and covered with gold. Back-to-back world champions, 2019, 2023. British and Irish Lions Series winners, 2021. Rugby Championship winners, 2019, 2024. Won a series at home against New Zealand 2-0. Won a series away against Australia 2-0. Beating every team in the world, including Ireland. Beat them in Pretoria. Lost in the last minute to a drop goal in Durban. We got to give Irish credit for that. One of the few teams to come here and actually knock over the Springboks.
Yep. And
then Argentina also, we had that 1 point loss. But the Boks, the team of the season, no question there. Rassie, player of the season, coach of the season, no doubt there. And then your guy, Cheslin Colby, mesmerized the international scene, has done the same wherever he's played, be it in South Africa, France or Japan. Scored a try on the weekend just for good measure. The first back in a long, long time to win the award.
Yeah, I mean, and very much deserving of that award. Had an absolutely fabulous season. He was in the running for the World Player of the Year award. I think you said he should have probably won it. So good to see him recognised as South Africa's Rugby Player of the Year for 2024. And onwards and upwards, let's see more of it. Hopefully he has another cracking 2025.
And, they say that the guys go to Japan because it lengthens their career. I thought he looked a little bit older when he went and got that award. Even tricked you there. You turned around and said to me, no, that's his dad. I know it's his dad's Zels, for goodness sake.
I thought, how bad are those glasses, mate?
How many glasses have you had? Cheslin's not here to accept this award tonight, but...
Yeah, it was a fabulous evening. Great to be around all those guys. My favourite part was at the beginning when Peter Steph du Toit came up to say hello and introduced himself. Hi, I'm Peter. We know.
Yes, we've gathered that. But,
what a magic oak.
But we did it on the Keo WhatsApp and Zels WhatsApp channel and on the SA Rugby channels. You guys did the awards and some interesting results from the fans. Like, who do you think should be the SA Rugby Player of the Year?
Yeah.
Peter Steph came out on our WhatsApp channel. He came out tops.
Yes.
With Cheslin second.
Yes.
But on the SA Rugby one,
people loved Oxenchair. Oxenchair was a huge favourite, and he was the guy that was nominated to win the award by the SA Rugby Mag readers. So very interesting.
But when you look at the nominees that were there, so it was Peter Steph du Toit, it was Oxenchair, it was the winner Cheslin, and Damien Deolandi. And geez, I mean, Damien Deolandi, Sonny Bill Williams keeps on raving about him, and I mean that's one of the ultimate accolades to get it from a player like that. And obviously Eben Etzebeth, who's our most capped player. Those to have a quintet like that of 5, you kind of think whoever won it was going to get a standing ovation.
No, totally.
But the amazing thing was when Chesn's name was read out, I mean, Evan was first out of the blocks. There's just this camaraderie within the team set up
Big time.
to give it to him. There is just something very special about this Boks setup at the moment. I've been writing about the Boks since 1992 when we came back from international rugby. I was still a pup back in the days, the All Black Test at Ellis Park, and then obviously my first one at Newlands, Cape Town, 26-3, we lost to Australia within the World Champions in 1992. But I've never experienced anything like I have in the last 4 or 5 years around this Boks setup. The players, the ambassadors that they are, the quality of player, Rassie's transparency, kind of coaching setup that he's installed, and just the love that there is for the Springboks in this country. And, Gayton McKenzie, the Minister of Sports, Arts and Agriculture, he was there. Guest speaker, spoke about how he used to be one of those guys who supported the All Blacks, no more. But how Mandela, the late Nelson Mandela, fought for that Bok emblem. And I kind of forwarded a column that I'd written quite a while ago of just the story around how he fought, Madiba fought to keep the Bok emblem. It is now the number one sporting brand in South Africa, bigger than Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. Globally, it's one of the biggest sporting brands. When you talk about rugby, it's the All Blacks and the Springboks,
Brilliant.
Nothing else. And then you can't show it enough as well. The historic 2006 photo shoot at his residence in Houghton, organized for me by Andy Murray, who was the Springbok PR at the time, and Zelda Lacranci, who was basically Mrs. Mandela at the time. And the photographer, myself, Jake White, and John Smith were there. They had a Springbok blazer made for Madiba. He put it on, did the photo shoot, took it off, and went straight into his museum. And that was the ultimate symbol to celebrate 100 years of the Springbok. But the celebration was about the 100 that was going to come. For what he had fought for to keep it, not necessarily the 100 that there was. So no longer was it a sign of a political slogan or emblem or a sign of an historic apartheid past. It was going to be a unifier of sporting excellence. I think that's what Minister McKenzie spoke about. That's what the Boks spoke about there. That was just the talk among the sponsors, the dignitaries, Mark Alexander and Obraza. That was their talk, was forever green, forever gold. Just going for the three-peat, going for 3 successive World Cups. And it was just great to be there and to actually celebrate South African rugby in all its glory, not through a press release, not through an edited TV kind of 20 minutes but through an evening where the players felt it was about them, the women players, the sevens players, and the Boks. And to see the women Boks and the male Boks in the same room, it really would have brought like cheer to Donald Trump's heart. That they were women and that they were men.
Yeah, so I thought it was a great evening. I really enjoyed it. You mentioned the sort of camaraderie in that team. When you're around them, you really kind of sense it. The humility of those guys is unprecedented, I think, in professional sports. It's insane. They just sort of cruise around like just average oaks, obviously world leaders in their sport and probably in the history of the game, some of the best players ever. So fabulous to be around them. I think Rassie deserves a lot of credit for the team culture and the team environment. And, his podcast that he's launched recently, we've been watching some of that stuff. And some of the stuff that comes out of that, you can see the Boks really do it's not just lip service, they play for the people of South Africa. It really is a driving force, and I think that's a massive foundation for this team. The people of South Africa, some of the difficulties that people in this country face, and the adversity that they have to overcome, and I think that is a very much central to who the Boks are.
But I mean, if you look at, we talk about Rassie, the innovator again, first man onto X, redefined it, got himself a good year ban for that one. But a worthwhile ban. We took the series. The Lions can never get it back, 2-1. He was very instrumental in putting the Lions, of course, there. He's got his own little video channel going on YouTube. It's memories of when he was a player, when he was a young coach, and that. And now starting his podcast. I just hope it's sustainable given the hectic season that they've got, 15 test matches. But insightful, thoughtful, and again, first coach in world rugby to do that.
Correct.
To open up his home.
Yep.
To open up his heart. And invite a commentary, invite questions, and kind of like give us a sense of who he is, who his management team is, and obviously an insight into the players that you would ordinarily never get. And to understand his thinking. I mean, 80-odd players, he's been very upfront what he's going to do with those 80 players, how they're going to play, how he's going to try and extend the veterans to the next World Cup. They know they're not going to play every test match. They know they may play 3 or 4 ways. But LaRue was a classic example last season. And also no handouts given. As he said, he'd love to have got Billy to 100 last year. But Apele Fassi was playing well. And he wasn't just going to walk him over the line. He's good enough still to play. And he'll surely get 2 out of 50 in this year to make it to 100. But there's just a science to everything. And, chatting to some of the players on Thursday night about the alignment camps, and I think the guy beaming the most was Dion Fourie, being given another lifeline by Rassie. He said it was fantastic. Rassie telling him exactly where he is in the pecking order, how he sees his role as, again, locked into that the hooking role in terms of providing depth to the incumbents, which are Malcolm Marx and Bongi. But just the enthusiasm and the will and the desire at his age to go again. He was chatting like he had just been picked for the first time for the Boks and he was 19. So if you get that enthusiasm and then you get a Lorenzo Julius, who's aspiring to play next to Lukanya Arm, to be in the same grouping as Damien Dialande, Jesse Creel, it was just, you can see the buzzies there, but it's not just an old select group that have done well.
Totally.
And they're going to be out of there soon. This is a phasing out, an integration, and you look again, 2027, most of that squad may have changed, and you don't even realize it's happened.
Yeah, I mean, one thing Rassie has done a fabulous job of is to build depth. That's what last season was about, building depth and winning at the same time. Unprecedented, I would say, probably in the history of pro rugby. He's done an amazing job doing that. And the consequence is that you now have options at every single position where players are pushed. The old guard are pushed by the youngsters, and the youngsters know that they have a real shot at breaking into this team. So there's definitely a sense of competitive tension in that squad, but in a constructive way. And I think that's fantastic. It's great to see youngsters who aren't jaded by the fact that they're going to be fifth choice. They know that at some point in the season they're going to get a shot, and that's the opportunity to take it. So exciting times.
And if you look at the award winners as well, and let's give a bit of a love out to the women Boks as well. Nadine Roos. Look at that picture, blonde, fly off, 2025 player of the year. People say things haven't changed in South African rugby, okay? And from the Bulls, I think. Yeah. But it was great to see the women there in all their splendor, see Philip Snyman there with his Blitzbokker,
Yes.
and then to see everyone acknowledged. I mean, Sasha getting the young player of the year, I think that was a pretty unanimous decision. Even though Cam Honeycomb was there, Sasha's impact more on an international stage than it was in the URC as such. And then just looking at team of the year, and even the fact that those guys didn't know if they would get the team of the year. Chaddington, they said, we hope we get the team of the year, but the Bulls had done very well to get to and host a final. There was just this humility the whole time.
Massive humility.
When it came to, surely it's just a no-brainer, it's your awards. Rassie will be the coach of the... I don't know. Other coaches have done well as well. And so that's the kind of talk you've never heard come out of a Bok camp. And just...
I mean, you talk about humility. Rassie didn't even rock up at the event. He didn't think he was going to win it, mate.
And it really was a loss. Like, speaking to Mark Alexander, talk about Rassie not being there. He had a previous engagement that he kind of booked in, I think in Bloemfontein a while ago that he couldn't get out of. It was linked to sponsors or to some other event. But... Mark Alexander's belief, and he spoke to the sponsors, led by Castle as well, to say, we have to honor these guys. We have to find the money somewhere. They really deserve it based on what they've done, based on what the women have done, the bronze medal that the Blitzboks got at France Olympics 2023. And they kind of all came to the party. And Marlon Kruger, who heads up the marketing and comms at SARugbymag, managed to put this thing together, I think, in 9 days.
Wow.
So if you didn't get an invite there, that's why. It's still in the post. But, we're so quick to knock and condemn things within SA Rugby, and historically over the last 30 years. It's easy to put them on the front page of when we still had newspapers for all the wrong reasons. But people are kind of hesitant to reward and applaud. And we really are the world leaders. And if you took that gala, I'll tell you, we're the world leaders in giving a rugby gala as well that night. And... one in the world comfortably, done everything. Everyone's talking there, the buzz about Eden Park, September the 6th against the All Blacks. People wanting to be there. The corporate sponsors saying they've got all packages going for their staff, incentivized to be there. It's just it's just building. It's building like a World Cup final played 2 years later again. And we know one thing: we know how to win away from home in a World Cup.
Yeah, no, spot on. That's one thing we can do. The Boks are a tournament team, and they've proven that time and again. And this particular team, like we've spoken about already, the depth of it just means we are less vulnerable to injury disruptions. And there's no chance this team's going to get stale. Everybody's on the balls of their feet and ready to give their best performance. So another thing I enjoyed about the event was after the award ceremony, we got to meet a couple of the stakeholders, including the guys from Castle Lager. Great bunch of guys, and their hearts and that brand very much invested in rugby.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to catch up with guys with Russ who I hadn't seen for many years. Post Comstaldraat, I did a few things for the Charles Glass Society, went around the country, gave a couple of talks, and he kind of drove me around in PE, so it brought back some memories. But that PE thing also brought back some memories to me, because at the time, obviously, it was post the 2003 World Cup disaster, losing by 20 points to the All Blacks in the quarterfinal, 25-6 to England in the opening game in Perth, and then obviously the infamous Comstaldraat. But when I went and did these talks, Cape Town, Joburg, and then obviously Port Elizabeth, everyone wanted to know about Comstaldraat. Everyone wanted to know about the shock, the horror, the chaos that there was. And when we were in P, some guy put up his hand. This kid, he was about 17. I think he must have come in with his dad, because you've got to be 18 and older, because they were serving lots of castle. And he was like, "Can I ask you a question? I've heard about the doom and gloom. How does it feel to be in the Springbok change room?" And he had tears in his eyes, and it was kind of a goosebump moment, because even though it wasn't the greatest period, 2000 to 2003, when I was the communications manager, it's still special to be in that box setup, to be in that change room.
Yeah.
And like I said to him, never stop dreaming, because I was a young fly that was never good enough to play for Western Province or play for South Africa. But there was brilliant fly-offs that never got to go into that box change room because they were second or third on the pecking order, and there just happened to be a golden generation 10 there, as in the case of an Aspuerta. And I kind of detailed stories about being in that box setup, about Morne du Plessis coming to give us our test jerseys before we played Wales, and the story he told about Michael Jordan and how he keeps himself inspired. And, and his story was that he went to Michael Jordan after he was there with the Lurius Awards. And he went to him and said, "How do you keep on performing on a court every single day, like 4 or 5 times a week?" And his thing was that Michael Jordan said to him, "Every time I go out and I warm up, I pick a kid's face in the crowd who's got my shirt on, and he's got the team colors on, and he's cheering and he's smiling before the game started. And can I keep that smile on his face when the final buzzer goes? And if I have done that, we've either won or I've played well." And his challenge, Morne's challenge was to the Boks, was when you run out, and it was before we played Wales at Newlands, we won that test 19-8. Terrible conditions. Brent Russell played well. and we went out. He said, "Go out there, look, as you come out the tunnel, look into the grandstand side. If you get to the railway stand side, look there, pick a kid," because at Newlands all the kids sit right next to the field. "Pick a kid, pick that face, and at the end of the game, look for that kid again. That kid smiling, you've probably won the test match." And it was just telling those stories about being in the box setup. Remember, we played in Wellington against New Zealand. We went up early. We were 13-3 up, and we lost 41-20, and Razor Robertson still scored that try. And Joe van Niekerk and Maurice Joubert were young in their careers. They were in the change room, and we said to them, go next door and speak to these guys. And, Kabani Boba played as well. And it's like, just go and interact. You're young internationals. And reluctantly they went over because they'd been beaten, so they didn't feel like they wanted to be there. And you fast forward again, and Tanu Umaga was a god, a legend, an icon in New Zealand. And many years later, Joe van Niekerk was captaining him at Toulon. So how it kind of like works and how it changes, but just to be there, and it was a great, just a great sense of being in that change room. Now I can imagine being in this shed when there's no political issues, there's no Comstaldraat, there's no racial innuendos. There's nothing of the sort. They're the most united team in the world, led by our greatest captain ever, Siya Kolisi. I think that's now, there's no longer a debate about that one. But and I mean, and just to see like a brand like Castle and the South African brands aligned to that team. And I go back to, I remember when Harry first, when he was the coach, Rob Fleming, who was the main guy at SAB and Castle for their sponsorships, he came in and gave the guys a pre-season presentation of what the brand does when the Boks are overseas, and all those all those kind of ads that they play that our players never get to see because
Right.
those ads aren't displayed anymore when they're back off tour. And it's all about this being South African. It's kind of like a iconic kind of association with the two brands. It's this kind of thing of when you drink that beer, you kind of just feel like you're South African. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. And
Emotive stuff.
oh, very emotive. And I mean, blokes were nearly in tears just watching the ads and just getting fired up. And at the end, Harry got up, thanked Rob, and he said, like, any question, Andre Fenter put up his hand. He said, when are you delivering the beers? And when Rob Fleming said, how many do you want? You know, we'll deliver them to you. So at the end of the day, the Oaks just wanted to dope a beer and that kind of stuff. But I think if you go back to 2016, we lost to Italy, and Mark Alexander was he had just taken over as interim president. He says one of the worst nights of his life. And people were burning the Boks jersey. No sponsors wanted to be associated with the team. APSA pulled out because they said there was not enough transformation in South African rugby. And we fast forward to that night we experienced at the convention centre last week. Wow, you just got to appreciate the magnificence of it if you understand the history of where we came from. Off the field and on the field. Those results, 57-0, 57-15, 49-0. That was a bit earlier with Jake in Australia and Brisbane. 38-3 against Ireland in Dublin. 21-6 against Scotland at Edinburgh. We've had some 53-3 against England at Twickenham. Some awful results. But then to come back and be where we are now can't be celebrated enough.
No, can't be celebrated enough. And they did a fantastic job in terms of the live events. I loved it. I'm not sure how it came across on TV, but the live event was spectacular. Fabulous to be around those guys. And we do come from some dark times in the not too distant past. And I feel like we're in a good space to avoid slipping back into that dark period in the next couple of years. As long as Rassie's around, you kind of get a feeling like there's a plan, there's a purpose, there's a direction. So the Boks are in great health. South African rugby's in great health. Long may it continue.
Well, you talk about, as long as Rassie's been around, getting a guy like Felix Jones come back and also just chatting to the players, just how respected he is, how glad they are that he's back in the mix, not coaching against them. There's a huge reverence for him, a huge respect from Rassie for him as well. You know, if you were in Ireland, you'd say that's one that the Irish let go. You know, in Ireland, who want to be the leaders in so much, but unfortunately aren't. Their guy is here in our setup and creating magic. But the one thing that Rassie in the alignment camp has been very clear about to the players is that we were 7th in the world in 2018. We won 7 out of 14. We lost to Wales 2 times that year, and we had beaten Wales once in 5 tests, I think it was. It can easily go back to there.
Yes,
you can go from 1 in the world to being 6, 7 very quickly.
Yeah.
And that was his message. It's easier to chase the crown than it is to wear it. But they put systems in place to wear it and to wear it well. And that's what differentiates this Boks setup from any other Boks setup I've known, reported on, been a part of, written about, is there is this forward planning, but not a forward planning of Zels, you're out, Keo, you're in. It's like you're both in, and let's see who gets to there. And you know what? The third guy may come in and actually be the one who starts the World Cup final. The planning is just beyond anything we've ever seen at a national level. And he's been given the support. He's been given carte blanche by the leadership, which also has been underplayed quite a bit.
Yeah, that I think that is the key thing there, is that Rassie is very much close to being autonomous in what he does there. And I think for a coach with a clear vision and a clear purpose, anything less than that hamstrings you and slows you down a bit. I think also you mentioned the planning there. From my experience with Russ, I mean, he's taught me a ton of stuff that was the basis for me getting into data analytics, and his whole reverence for and appreciation for the data and the numbers and the science behind the game, not just the feelings of, oh, I like this guy, I like the way he plays. What does that actually translate to in data and statistics? And his appreciation for how to win games, I think, is at the very center of why the Boks are successful. And there's a lot of work and planning that goes into creating that sort of a stats-based environment. And I think that's where Felix plays a massive role, is he rolls his sleeves up and does the grind to provide the details that allow you to coach in that sort of way. So I think there's a lot of coaches out there that are quite expressive, and they come with experience and they know elements of their department from their coaching and playing experience. But in terms of data analytics, rugby is a long way behind, and I think a guy like Felix obviously adds massive value in that department.
So I mean, the Boks coaching and management squad is now 21. So if we go according to a match day 23, there's still place for 2 at the World Cup. And obviously Jacques Nienaber,
Yep.
maybe number 22 that comes in there. And there may be a kicking specialist. Percy Montgomery or Mornay Stay.
There we go.
Then we've got the complete package there. That'd be brilliant. Okay. To Monty, he's
Yes.
doing the big iron challenge. I think it's this week. The big iron challenge, swimming 3.5 kilometers. He did 4Ks in the ocean the other day, 1 hour 46. His birthday this week. Vincent Cox's birthday this week. Frans Malherbe's birthday this week. Some big Bok player names, kind of a year older, a year wiser. But shout out to Monty. There's also a charity that Monty's doing it for, a kids charity. It's been on the socials of SA Rugby Magazine, on our WhatsApp channel. If you can donate something to it, please do so. Monty will appreciate it. Every morning we get the check-in. We get him at the pool. He sends us his times that he's done in the pool, and he sends us a picture of that coffee and that banana. And then this morning he sent me a great picture of Eben advertising in a big cardboard cutout, advertising some sustenance, and Monty right in front of him. I think it's Baraka. So we'll show that up on the screen as well, thanks to Imad. But so much going well and going right for the Boks. 15 test matches, 13 confirmed, 2 still to be confirmed. Obviously the 2 big ones in New Zealand, hosting a rejuvenated, I think, Australian side in South Africa, Johannesburg and Cape Town. And then that big back-to-back, it's going to be France in Paris, Ireland the next weekend. But all the more it's looking like, don't dismiss Italy when you get there. You've got to be on top of your game. That's where we start the tour. Now we're going to round it off with a big one against Wales. But France, Six Nations champions, allez le bleu. You called it by 16 points. I also said 16
Yes, you
points,
did.
and they won by 19.
Yeah.
Your impressions of the match first, the Guinea Six Nations, and where does it put them in relation to us and potentially New Zealand as well, as we start building towards a World Cup?
I love the French campaign. I love the way they responded to that early defeat against England. I love the fact that they recognized the tenets of South African rugby. They got Flock Cilliers there helping with the kicking game, which is central to their success. And then they've got a 7-1 bench, which they cut and paste from South Africa. That was also central to their success. Like we said right at the beginning of this championship, those other European teams can't live with France's heavyweight pack of forwards. They've got them in abundance. They are huge. They are robust. And by European standards, they are indomitable. So the French rode that recipe of success, playing the percentages, dominating the collisions on attack and defense, and then being able to score on transition. And suddenly their outside backs all look like world beaters. BL is a fantastic finisher, creator. And that French team is deservedly the champions, I would say. And certainly on the upward curve, probably passing Ireland on the escalator on their way down. So fabulous tournament. I enjoyed it. What did you think?
No, I thought it was great. And, you take, unfortunately, Italy's one blowout, but against an incredibly red-hot French side.
Yeah.
But the way Italy fought and scrapped
Totally.
against Ireland, 22-17 they lost. I thought they were going to get blown away. That we'd see the big Irish comeback. It was 4 tries to 2. Jack Crowley missed quite a few kicks. But for 42 minutes, the last 42 minutes, Ireland played with a man up, and it was one of the forwards. They lost 3 forwards before the end of the game to cards, Italy. Now, Italy needs to be playing 16 against 50, not 14 against 50.
100%.
For them to push Ireland so close, the one thing there is the mental scarring, and we spoke about it, 34 unanswered points in that defeat against France in Dublin a fortnight ago. How much impact was that going to have on these Irish players? They looked like a scarred team when they went out there. There wasn't the strut of that 2023 World Cup side, zombie arriving there. There wasn't.
Yeah.
There wasn't at all. And they looked panicked in that last 10 minutes when Italy came back and made it 22-17.
Yeah.
And I think it had been 15-15. It would have been a lot closer than 5 points even.
Yeah.
They got the 5 league points that were the bonus point win, as they would say. But when you look at their performance and you look at their performance against France, you look at how they battled in the first 40, 45, 50 minutes against England. You also look at how they kind of battled against Wales at Cardiff. And then their autumn internationals lost to New Zealand, scraped a 3-pointer against Argentina, and scraped a 3-pointer against Australia. So you put that in a collective. That is not an Irish team that's on the way up.
No.
3 of their big stars have just retired.
Yeah.
Their imports, James Lowe and Gibson Park, the wrong side of 30 as such. And a lot of guys, I mean, Rinrose, Bundiaki, Henshaw, also 30 plus kind of campaigners. So there's a lot of experience that they're going to lose. And I think we've seen the best of that golden generation. And you'd be talking about Ireland in the next 2-3 years more as a top 4, top 5 team than a top 1, 2, or 3 team.
Yeah, I think we saw the best of them, like you mentioned, at the last World Cup. And that team was built to kind of peak there, and that's what they did. They couldn't get across the line, but they were playing some good rugby. And I think people look at it now and they go, oh, Ireland's just fallen off a cliff. But this is a consequence of decisions that weren't taken after that last World Cup. And I think we've mentioned Rassie and the continuity around having him in his plan. Ireland haven't had that. They've had some coaching changes in the last couple of years. And I think it's quite difficult to come into a team that is one of the best that Ireland have produced in the professional era and make sweeping changes. But that's what needed to happen. Ireland are where they are now because 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, they didn't start phasing out or start bleeding in youngsters to replace some of these veterans that are hailed in Ireland, but obviously can't play forever. And that, I think the drop-off is when Omani goes, when Tyke Byrne, Tyke Furlong, Bundiaki, the player behind those guys is not established in the same way that we've got in South Africa. And I think that's where they're starting to sort of take some hits, take some shots, is they just don't have the same depth because they haven't created it.
Well, Peter O'Mahony, Conor Murray, two of the greats of Irish rugby. Mahoney in the flankers, Conor Murray, number 9, Munster boys. And you look, Gibson Park, if something happens to him, you don't see a natural 9 coming in there that's going to be at that level. They really do rate Sam Prendergast, but he's a kid.
I like him though. I think he's going to get there. It's just he's a couple of
and I mean,
season or two away.
It's a bit like our Sasha. I mean, you're going to get some great moments. You're also going to get some struggling moments from him. But he is a talented player. But he's no Johnny Sexton yet. He's no Ronan O'Gara. So when you look at what's coming through, I look at France and just say every year that there's just good talent coming through. Look at the under-20s who won the Six Nations under-20 title. Ireland came last in that campaign. England will always, for me, be there and thereabouts if they can get their selections right and kind of decide on how they play. And really how they should be playing is also with their pack. I mean,
Totally.
If you look in world rugby, it's France, it's England, who traditionally have always troubled us with a pack. And when New Zealand have had a pack, they've beaten us because they still managed to trouble us without a world-class pack. So, but those two Northern Giants are the two, and it's never been born out of having magnificent backs. So the myth of French rugby is it's all about these magnifique, the backs. It's not.
Carefree backs.
When France has been strong, it's when their pack has been strong.
But that's true for all rugby, right?
It is. I mean, you take the Hurricanes team of yesteryear, Christian Cullen, John Olomu, Tana Umaga, Ma Nonu in their back division. And then you had Jerry Collins and Rodney Soyahala in their loose forwards. But they had no tight 5. They never won anything.
Correct.
So they would have some wonderful tries in the best of the season, but invariably they would be 50% winners in the competition. You've got to have a pack. France has got that pack, but nowadays you don't have to have a pack. You have to have 2. And that 7-1 split. Rassie, you've got to give us an 8-0 split. I still think Paris should be 8-0. You know Cheslin can cover 9. So that seems to be the key that everyone's worried about.
Kwagga can go into the back line.
Exactly. I mean, Peter Steff can play on the wing. Is 8-0, 8-0, 23. I think it's fantastic for the game. And what Galtier has done is he put his pride in his pocket as such and said, if Rassie can do it, he's got the players, I've got to look for those players. Vern Carter, who coaches the Blues, said if he had 7 forwards equal of the 7 that he's 7 of the 8 that he's starting, they would be on the bench as well. He would play a 7-1 split. That is where the game has gone towards now. It's not a run on 15. It's a 23, and it's got to be pack dominated.
I agree 100%. It's about winning the collisions, and you need the forwards to do that. Momentum is everything in rugby. And having reinforcements that can come on and just sort of up the ante in that final quarter, final 30 minutes is a game changer. So backs are pretty interchangeable, but that physicality that you get from the pack, if you don't have it on the bench, then you don't have it.
And then I saw that just talking about Six Nations, France, victors, and obviously everyone now in the French team is in a World 15. You know, that's kind of out of sight, out of mind, the Springboks at the moment. So you go back and you beat them, and then it's like, oh, okay, we're not quite as good as we thought we were. However, Cheslin Colby now apparently won't make the French team, according to him.
Really?
Cheslin Colby makes any team.
Interesting.
He makes any team and kind of plays wherever he wants. I think if Cheslin hadn't played for South Africa, he'd have been playing for France on Saturday night. Got his French citizenship after being there for 5 years with Toulouse and then Toulon. And when he was there, he was the superstar winner.
100%.
And when we saw him in that magnificent 29-28 win against France in the 2023 World Cup quarterfinal in Paris, he showed his mate, Damien Penaud, a nice clean pair of heels on his way to scoring a try.
Yes, he did.
So Colby did it every week in, week out in top 14 Champions Cup for Toulouse, and then in the Challenge Cup for Toulon as well. Cheslin Colby first into any back three that you'd want to pick.
I mean, a fabulous player. And where world rugby is right now and the way that people are defending, he is worth his weight in gold. I think he's a phenomenal talent, obviously. And I keep saying this. I think he's a guy who, in the latter stages of his career, I'd love to see him in more of a kicking role, because I think when the legs start to go, he's still got the boot to take control of a game and add real value there too. So let's see what happens.
All right, so France wins it, okay? Gaël Fickou was back, he didn't play much in the Six Nations.
Yeah.
You told me an interesting thing about medals that were handed out.
Yeah, so they're only supposed to have 23 medals for the winners on the day, but Antoine Dupont, the golden boy, inspired them to create a 24th medal, and so he got a medal after the final whistle. He was front and center of the team photo there. Obviously made a massive contribution to their campaign, but I just thought it interesting that other guys who'd been playing and been injured, no medals were made for them, only for Antoine Dupont. I think Gaël Fickou had to give his medal to one of his injured teammates. So surprising decisions there. It's kind of a microcosm of how rugby works, though, right? There's two classes. There's the golden boy class, and the rules seem to apply to them that don't apply to the rest of the guys. So interesting.
But you say Gaël Fickou had to, or he did?
Well, he did. He chose to. What I mean is his mate wouldn't have had a medal if Gaël Fickou hadn't given his medal across. So.
I find that odd that they don't give to the entire squad that's contributed.
That's what I would
Because
think.
it's not just winning the final.
Totally.
You've got to, it's not like you're playing in a final. It was deemed to be a final because it came down to the last game. But if you're playing a league, then everyone who's played in that league should get a medal.
You'd think so.
I would like to think so. It's something I want you to look into.
Maybe it's something that they only have 23 on the day at the venue.
And then they give it to everyone
Then
else.
you get issued one later on.
Although for this one they had 24.
They made sure there was 24.
But talking about Dupont, I mean, I had to have a little chuckle because I thought Luca played very well.
was very good.
The replacement 9. But you wouldn't even know he had played because the commentators hardly mentioned him. He did put in one touch finder that was about 55 meters. And if Dupont had done that, it would be the greatest touch finder
Pause
we've
the
ever
game.
seen
Applaud.
in the history of the game.
Yeah.
And all the commentators said was he does get distance and length on his kick. But interestingly enough, I even spat when I said that. Interestingly enough, the commentators, the Irish commentators for the Ireland-Italy game, managed to introduce Dupont's name several times in that game. Even in that game. Well, Dupont would have done it different. So when the Italian 9 got in, he did something. Oh, Dupont would have done it different. Dupont. So, but what France did show is they could win big games without him.
Yeah.
And that was a pressure game. Again, I liken it to our game against Scotland, November last year. Scotland had us under the pump. We started well. We were 19-9 up. Hugh Jones scored. Great try. Call back for a knock-on 2 phases back. 19-16, shape of the game changes in the first 10 of the second half.
Yep.
19-9, we go into the shed, and kind of their motivation is gone a little bit. In Paris, France started well, got a 10-point lead. Scotland came back into it. Yellow card to France. It should have been a red. Nice little headbutt from our famed hooker. And all of a sudden, people started getting nervous at the start of France. Because we've known France to kind of implode and to lose games when it comes down to La Crunch. And then they got themselves back in. Scotland got themselves back into 16-13 behind. And aimless kick from France, kicking deep. Fantastic counter from Quinon. Scotland score. And Maurice van der Westhuizen intervenes and says his foot was in touch. And they don't show us the visuals. And the referee says, he says, don't worry, mate, I trust you. And he says, no try, and off we go. And how ironic that it was the home team that got that kind of thing. And it was so underplayed afterwards. I don't say it would have been significant to the outcome. I don't say France wouldn't have won. Just that was a pivotal moment. 2016, as opposed to 16-13 down, and France scored early in the second half to take it to 23-13, and after that the game
No, I
was
think
done.
that was a decisive moment in the game. I think Scotland would definitely have had a better shot in that game, obviously, if that try had been given. And interesting the circumstances around it. So much for the headbutt. I don't know. I still haven't seen the headbutt. I keep watching the replay and I see him pushing Ben White. I don't see a headbutt in there, but apparently everyone's agreeing that it is a headbutt.
What did you see, mate?
I saw him push with his shoulder, mate. Ben White was on the ground, and I saw him sort of like clean him out. I didn't see a headbutt. Where's the headbutt?
Push up to the neck, chin area.
No, right. I didn't see that. And if it was a headbutt, then he should have got red carded. I don't know how they gave him a yellow. If they
Well, that's
decided it was a
exactly.
headbutt,
So if there
then
was
it should
nothing
be.
there, why was there even a yellow?
Precisely.
Huh?
But what I'm saying is from the replays, which is what they refer to. Marius van der West, but Marius van der West says, right?
I don't know.
I think it was. He was the teamer. But
Yeah, it was him. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't see any headbutts. I saw Ben White writhing in pain,
Yeah.
looking for a red card.
Well,
but
you know what the irony was when they had to call Fico out of the showers to say you got to go back on, because he was not Fico. Give me that hooker's name again.
yeah, Mavaka.
Mavaka.
Yeah.
He was already on his way home.
Yeah. It's
He
true.
thought he was going to be
He was
upgraded from the
gone.
bunker
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
So, but he is a good player.
He's
but
a
that's-
great
so
player.
The question there is, who antagonized him and why? What was said to him when he was on the ground?
Any time that a scrum off is on the receiving end of something, he probably deserves it. That is a scrum off's job.
He probably said to him, "You're not really French, you're Caledonian." What?
You're right.
Bonjour, monsieur. So France, champions of the North, which makes it wonderful. So it's world champions up against the Six Nations champions. November.
Do you think the game's going to live up to it, mate? Do you think the French are going to actually...
It's going to be a great game,
I think
mate.
it's going to be a cracker.
Look, the weather conditions are going to be tough because it's November there. It's always cold, but it's in Paris.
Yeah.
It will be fantastic. That thing's going to be built for some time now. And the big thing is it's going to be 7-1, 8-0 or 6-2 split. If they announce a 6-2 split, everyone say, boring. So, and it doesn't even matter who runs out there because there's so much depth with both sides.
Yeah.
It will be a fantastic match. For me, obviously, Eden Park, that's the big one. We keep on
That is
talking
the
about
big
it. When we take the All Black record, and, you know, we France took the World Cup from us. We took it back from them. New Zealand's taken a few things from us in the past. We'll take this one back from them. And then
I look forward to it.
just the two games I want us to win this year and win well. Eden Park and Paris, mate. And look, I got to much say, you got to go to Dublin and win, eh?
Don't forget Georgia, mate.
We haven't done that for a while. But great wrap to the Six Nations. That's now over. We see those players coming back into the URC, United Rugby Championship. We will be playing in the Challenge Cup. None of our teams are in the playoffs for the Vested Champions Cup.
Yeah.
But how many of that battered Leinster Irish mob will be on a plane to South Africa to play the Bulls this weekend? I doubt many, eh?
I doubt it, mate. I doubt it'll be many of them. Leinster are 12-0 at the top of the URC standings. As much as they need to get those guys back into play and get their team up ready for the playoffs and the sharp end of the season, I'm not sure they force anybody back in. Ireland's morale levels have got to be pretty low. So I'm sure they'll integrate them slowly, especially for a long flight to South Africa to go play on the Highveld.
And I mean, it's a game that has got no relevance to where they will be in the log standings. They're going to finish top. They're going to host.
I think Leinster would rather have the Bulls finish second than Glasgow anyway, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they don't want them to come back and potentially do a number on them like they did a couple of years ago in Dublin. So we have URC action. We've got two South African teams on the road. We've got the DHL Stormers. They're in Wales. Wales. Any of the Wales left after that massacre?
What Wales?
What Wales, eh? Poor Wales, eh? And, you know, there's some that even say they didn't have the nicer jersey.
Not on that day.
And they didn't keep their side of the field tidy.
Thank goodness for Blair Murray, mate.
But you need more than one Kiwi, eh?
Indeed, Oscar Island.
You need more than one Kiwi to do it. But what surprised me, and look, I thought they'd lose by 20 plus points. Those were our predictions. That no one thought it would be 54 points. But what surprised me was how shocked everyone seems to be in Wales that they got smashed. They've lost 17 tests in a row, man. Then you shouldn't have any surprises.
I mean, it would be a shock if they'd won, surely. I mean,
Well, it'd be a shock if they'd even run them close.
Yeah, no, 100%. Wales are in a very, very tricky space. I'm not sure how they're going to climb out of it, but I look forward to seeing them climb out of it because it's not fun to watch at the moment.
And you know what the great thing about this win for World Rugby is? because now England think that's the way they have to play. Because their media is going to say you have to play like that. Play Ben Earls at 12.
The complete game.
Play Ben Earls in the midfield. Play the complete game. And then they're going to come up against a team like South Africa or New Zealand or France who actually tackles. And they're going to say, don't play that way. Go back to playing with your pack. So they're going to be more confused than anything else because they got their win against Scotland, playing very defensive rugby. They smashed and annihilated Wales. And let's be honest, at the moment, if you're beating Wales, it's a false dawn.
I mean, it's good. You got to beat the guys that they put out, but Wales are in a dark space.
With the greatest respect, it's a false dawn. You can't assess who you are, where you are, if you're thumping them. No. But their worst ever defeat at home, 68 points to 14, and they really, that white flag came up in the last 15. Another 5 minutes, they could have challenged that 96-13 defeat at Pretoria against the Springboks, where it would have been 100, but Naka Drotzka dropped the ball with the try line begging.
That's sportsmanship.
In the 80th minute. And all of Wales said, Naka, here's your property in the valleys. So we got URC, Vodacom United Rugby Championship. We got the Lions on tour as well.
They're at Cardiff, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they've taken as strong a squad as they can. Big tour for a guy like Morne van den Berg. One of the better nines in South Africa. He was the star of the Lions in that narrowed 25-22 defeat against the Sharks.
Yeah. He's
fundamental to how they play and kind of their results.
Yeah, very much so. So the Lions kick off with this two match overseas tour and then come home for 4 in a row. Obviously, there's some Challenge Cup stuff in between, but that home run, any success on this tour now for the Lions, and the Stormers have the same end run, 2 away and then 4 at home. Any success away from home really does set them up for a strong finish and to climb in deeper into that playoff contention. So guys like Morne van den Berg, very much central, and Klabakanye, central. I see Marius Lowe's on his way to the Sale Sharks after the season. He'll want to go out on a high. So very much rooting for the Lions.
Or on the Highveld.
Yeah, on the Highveld too, yeah.
Good signing there for Sale Sharks.
Great signing, mate. He's going to absolutely... People there are going to be like, how did this guy not play for the Boks? It's a pity he's 30 because he could have played for England. He's going to absolutely thrive there. I look forward to it. He's going to be a smash hit there.
And going to the right club as well.
Perfect club.
You can get to speak Afrikaans in Manchester.
They serve up Vos in the canteen. It's great.
All right, and then the Stormers, 2 big games there. Like you said, they've got 4 at home. They just have to get into that top 8 because most of the injured players will be back.
Yeah.
And then it's a very different situation where you've got a Damian Willems, a Mani Lebok back in the mix, a Sasha back in the mix. Most of their forward contingent there. They become a very different side than the one we've seen, who've been kind of hit and miss based on the 23s they put out.
Yeah, no, so they're expecting reinforcements back, some of them this week already, and I think the Stormers are going to have a very strong end to the season, climb back into the playoff contention, and be a tricky team to play when some teams have to travel, and even when the Stormers have to go over there. Just the X factor of some of those guys coming back is going to change a lot of the dynamic for the Stormers, I think.
All right, so that's URC. We'll chat in detail about the URC matches in our Thursday show, where we give our predictions as well. But the Japan League One, you struggle to find a lot of news on that, but there's a great handle now on X.
Yeah,
the handle is
at RugbyJP.com.
Yeah, and the guy likes your stuff, Zels. He likes all your conspiracy theories. He likes my reposts. So we're giving him a shout out. The history behind that handle? It's the only English one, eh?
Yeah. So the official league does have an English translated handle, but this is an independent one run. I think it was founded by a guy called Mark Pickering, who's a Welsh sports journalist. And it's a fantastic website. If you're interested in catching up on what's happening in Japanese rugby, it's a good handle to follow.
A victory for Wales there.
A victory for Wales.
And so this week was very interesting this past weekend, because the one game that I was very interested in was when I saw the squad selections. Cheslin Colby against Kurtley Orense, but then the one played fullback. Kurtley played fullback and Cheslin played on the wing. Cheslin scored a try.
Yep.
I think Kurtley's team got the win. Only Cheslin's third start in Japan in the last couple of months. But then a lot of South Africans playing in that league. Our stars are playing. The Malcolm Marxes of the world, the Damien Diolandis, Franco Mostert, Loot de Jager,
Faf de Klerk.
Faf de Klerk. Is Faf de Klerk a bit of the forgotten 9 at the moment?
I saw a little clip of him saying, how's it to TJ Perenara after the game. And I just thought, this guy was the poster boy for Springbok rugby at one stage. Definitely seems to have, I wouldn't say have been forgotten, but sidelined in the current narrative, especially obviously last season. and a guy who I think could obviously still add value to South African rugby. So I hope he hasn't sort of been. I hope he's not completely off the radar, because I think Faf has got a lot of contribution still to make. Speaking about that Dynamos game with Kirtley and Cheslin, that was Kato Mkunu's debut in the Japan League One. He obviously went over from the Bulls last week, and we were looking at the table. We wrote a whole story up about how the Bulls could get Kirtley Aronson back, because the Dynamos are fighting in this sort of relegation battle. And he rocks up, joins the Dynamos, and bang, they go beat Suntory, and starting to climb their way out of that zone. So the Bulls, I'm sure, are hoping that Mitsubishi don't get anywhere near the playoffs. They get Kirtley back for the URC playoffs. They have to register him for that squad by the end of April. So they'll be keeping a close eye.
Yeah, and I mean, the Bulls, always a better team when they have Kirtley Aronson.
Every team.
I mean, Kirtley and Cheslin Colby, without a doubt, the two best winners in South Africa, and right up there in the top 4 or 5 of world rugby. Cheslin obviously number 1. But Kirtley with that pack that's been playing in the Six Nations and playing for New Zealand. Talking of the Kiwis, Macca Springer, what a name,
Macca Springer, mate.
McKay
Tries.
Springer,
Wow.
Tasman boy.
Yeah.
Macca Springer, 22 years old, 5 tries for the Crusaders against the Western Force. Only the late Sean Wainui has done that for the Chiefs. 5 tries. Your mate Sevo Reese, he got 3. No one even spoke about his 3. The other guy got 5. 9 tries. Some fantastic matches again this weekend. Super Rugby, you call it popcorn, you call it basketball. But that 32-31 victory for the Chiefs against the Blues. A home win for the Chiefs. They've now done the double over the Blues.
Yep.
There were some really good matches. And then great to see in Australia, the big rivalry, the big derby, the Queensland Reds up against the Waratahs in Brisbane, 35-15 to the Reds. Les Kess, who was with the Boks in 2000 as a consultant, defensive consultant. He's coaching the Reds. He also coached Ulster for a while. But a fantastic win for them. There is something brewing in that Aussie game ahead of this British and Irish Lions series.
It's a bit like the Six Nations, though. You kind of have to watch it in the context of who they're playing. They're playing each other. So you've got to say, wow, it's some fantastic rugby and some standout players. But you're not really sure about how to gauge that in the context of the next level. So can the Australian players that are performing in Super Rugby translate that to the test arena, specifically when the Wallabies play the likes of the All Blacks and the Springboks? And I think that's what we've got to wait and see. That's the point of Test rugby. But it is great to see that revival of confidence and interest in Australian rugby. Certainly some great players coming through there. Fraser McWright opting to turn down a massive contract offer to go to Japan to stay with the Wallabies. Another good sign that there's belief there that things are going to turn around.
And Damien McKenzie playing well. Bowden Barrett injured at the moment. I see Richie Mohanga got another player of the match in Japan.
Yeah.
But McKenzie looking like he could be playing himself into that number 1 position.
That's what he does, though, mate. That's what he does. Backyard touch. He's the best in the world. When you put him on the biggest stage, some of the cracks start to show.
I thought he was all right in Dublin against Ireland when they won 23-13. I think we've been a bit hard on D-Mac at the moment.
I love D-Mac.
Looking at the Drua, that came close to a second successive win. But looking at that competition, we're pretty much halfway through it before the playoff stage. The key there is that 8 teams go into the playoffs and they've only got 11 teams.
Yeah.
So you just have to be there and thereabouts. Don't discount the Blues, the defending champions. They won from 5. But some great talent emerge in there, some on both the Australian and New Zealand side. Great to see the Drua competitive, because most of the national side tends to come out from the blokes who are playing in France and playing in Europe and in the UK. So I'm loving Super Rugby Pacific. Greatest New Zealand Australian tournament in the world.
Yeah, the competition's not very high, mate, but you're right.
It's not the greatest in the Southern Hemisphere, but it's the greatest exclusive to the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. That's true, mate. I thought I was watching the Lions play the Sharks with those jerseys that they had on.
Well, again, we're the innovators, we're the leaders.
I love that they're following us.
We did that 4 years ago.
Yeah.
They've come in, superhero day, kids day, a weekend. It was fantastic to see them playing all the Marvel superhero jerseys. But it's not a unique idea.
Not,
we did it.
It's
post the Rainbow Cup, mate, when we came back post-COVID. We were straight into having a day like that. Beautiful. But it is a reminder we should maybe do another day like that.
Why not, mate?
We have Origin Week weekends. I think we have 2 of them in the URC, where we kind of remember where these guys came from, their schools, their clubs. And we also have a kids weekend. You may find that in the next 2-3 weeks, we come up with a Spider-Man jersey or
I love the Origin stuff where they wear their school socks. I think that's brilliant.
I love Origin. I was chatting to Dion Ferree the other night. He spoke about him and Victor Matfer coming from the same school up north. I would love an Origin game in South Africa.
Oh, mate.
You can only play
That'd be brilliant.
from where you were born.
That'd be brilliant.
North versus South. But
That
then
would be
Brunners
good.
did say to me, so where do the Oaks from the Cheetahs go? If you're born in Bloem. And I thought about it.
Amsterdam.
And I thought about it. Those poor buggers are always on the
Right in the
outside.
middle.
There's always a discussion about them.
Mate, speaking about them being on the out, they're fifth in the SA Cup, which means if the season had to end today, they wouldn't qualify for the Currie Cup. They have to get into the top 4 after 2 games. They're fifth. They have just blanked the Leopards' massive score in round 2. But you've got to see the Cheetahs climb back into playoff contention in the SA Cup. They might miss the Currie Cup, mate.
No, they won't. And like France, after they lost to Boland in the opening game, and Boland went and lost in their second game up in Valcom, where no one outcoaches France staying 2 weeks in a row. Not twice. And they got the backlash. 69-0, the poor Leopardos. Eh? They took a beat in the Leopardos.
Right.
So, but just going back to Super Rugby
How many times
Pacific.
did he write his name in the team sheet and scratches it out?
Oh, 15, 14, 13. 1 no, 3 no. So, Rompino, you must be looking at him saying,
Why do you keep bringing me to the bleep test?
yeah, you're ruined. Like, I don't know. You need to be there, 9 or 10. Wouldn't surprise if he run on the bench at some stage. He's good enough.
Yeah.
It's good enough. If those knees of France weren't gone, he'd be there as well. But great to see the Cheetahs back. When I see the Cheetahs were the 12th team in Super Rugby Pacific.
Oh, mate, that'd be brilliant. I'd love to see that. We're almost on the anniversary of them winning their first ever game overseas. I think it's Wednesday. I can't remember exactly which game it was, but it was a Super Rugby match, their first one overseas, and they won it.
A lot of anniversaries that you find. Eh?
Yeah.
Like you just a wealth of information when it comes to little
Useless information.
little kind of like pub tidbits, okay? Looking at the SA Cup, say it's been 2 rounds now. Super Rugby's halfway through it. We're getting to the tail end, really, of the URC. Schools Rugby started up again. Familiar faces, familiar results. In the Western Cape especially, Paul Gymnasium, Parochem, too strong for Stellenberg. Tace Lombard. Follow that guy on X.
Yeah.
One of the great photographers, videographers in Cape Town. He adores schools rugby. He's always there. You get some wonderful footage. I know you guys at SA Rugby use some of his stuff.
Yep.
But he was there. They've got the centre, Muller, the captain
Marcus
of
Muller, yep.
Is he related to Yori Muller?
I don't think so,
Come
mate.
on, you're the editor of SA Rugby.
He can tackle.
You're the editor of SA Rugby.
I don't know.
So he got 3 tries. He's the captain. They say he's the go-to guy. Look for him this season. And then obviously Grey Cotties. They beat Oakdale. Good win that as well. It all really starts now when it comes to the Easter festivals. There's going to be plenty school rugby. And our school rugby talent is just wonderful to watch.
Yeah.
And especially those festivals. And we'll be covering that in detail on the show, giving you kind of the who's who. Because that Old Boys Club globally, it's unfortunately they don't ask like what the first team hockey results were, or if anything, some of the schools they ask you what the polo results were, or they look for that. But it's always rugby.
Yep.
Doesn't matter where that old boy is in the world, he'll like go onto YouTube or go onto that scores. I remember when I was at SA Rugby magazine, that schoolboy rap on a Monday was one of the best red raps, and there's still those bragging rights around a bride.
Big time.
With a Castile key in your hand.
Big
Just
time.
saying, looks like Saxonville done it again. Done what? Lost. the derby. Lost the derby again, damn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you coached at schoolboy level, not one of the elite teams.
No.
You coached a.
Rondebosch.
You coached. I love that. Bossy, eh? That's one for Devon Marnus, eh?
Yeah.
But you coached out in the West Coast, Tableview,
Yeah.
when they still had a bit of a team, eh?
Yeah.
And
I actually took over a season after they didn't win a single game. So we turned that team around. They did quite well. A great bunch of Oaks. Fantastic squad. Still in touch with most of those guys.
Yeah, and I've bumped into a few of them since we started doing the poddy, and they adore you, mate. They adore you.
Good kids.
They did say that if you ever go to a black tie do again, dressed up, me in the penguin suit, you in the Men in Black suit, please wear a pair of socks.
I try to go bare feet.
Please wear a pair of
Maybe
socks.
put shoes on.
They say you're trying to be suave and trying to be kind of cool, but they would like to have seen you with your Springbok socks on.
Okay.
Or your Origin socks.
Mate, that green bow tie, that was something special.
Actually, I like the...
And the braces, mate.
The braces, nice touch. Cost me a shitload of cash.
Just need an industrial pig at the back there, mate.
Said to Mark Alexander, you know how much this is costing me to be here? I've never had a suit like this in my life. He was quite impressed that he's seen
Suits
me
it up.
without jeans on or without kind of pair of
flip-flops.
shorts on.
Yeah.
But at one stage, it was quite funny for those, obviously, who weren't there, most of you. At one stage, as the evening was proceeding, it wasn't just because of the main course, I kept on looking at my braces, and they kept on looking like I'd unbuckled my seatbelt.
They're sort of hanging loose.
I mean, just like hanging looser and looser and looser. And eventually I said to Zels, how do I get these things off? And he said, what do you mean, mate? They're all off. The back and unclip. He had to kind of clip me back into position.
Classic.
And then he spent the whole night telling me, this is a live recording. Shh. Shh. But it was great
fabulous.
fun. I mean, there's just so much rugby at the moment. And it's now full on. Basically, it's full on till December. When the Boks come home of the successful end of the year tour, we breathe for a few days and then it's full on.
It's full on until March.
Yeah, it's full on again. This is now basically a full on year of rugby, 12 months.
Yeah.
And it's going to be URC, it's going to be the Boks, the Curry Cup, let's not forget about that. Schools rugby, the SA Cup, which will finish in a couple of months' time. The big test international season, end of year tours. It's just going to be glorious, man.
Looking forward to it, mate. Good times.